Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the St. Louis podcast. I'm your glorious host today, Eric Brown, president of iMedia and partner at Mogul Holdings. Today we have Tim. Say your last name for
Branyan.
us. There we go.
Branyan.
Branyan on the St. Louis podcast, and we're going to get into the weeds with him and their business. But before we do, I butcher last names, by the way, all the time on this podcast. This is the St. Louis podcast where each and every Friday at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time, we drop an episode on all major podcasting, audio, and video platforms. All right, Tim. So we got a tech industry veteran and entrepreneur, served in the Air Force, then pursued software development. So let's go back to the Air Force.
Mhm.
What did you learn? What kind of did that establish like good routines in order to become a successful business owner? Or did it almost make it harder because you're used to the routine and now as a business owner, you're almost thrown off of that routine?
Yeah, good question. I think it enhanced. I think it helped me for sure. I mean, when I grew up low middle class, loving the family, but not a
Mhm.
whole lot of dollars. And the military was, one of the best decisions I made early on because I wasn't going anywhere fast. I was, drinking, chasing the party scene, chasing girls, and I knew I was a good person. I just didn't set up any systems or plans like with that, with with my life. So
Sure.
went to the military, and I think to answer the question, it helped me develop um, a sense of purpose.
Mhm.
I left my environment, right, so it was a whole new group of people, and we challenged each other. And a lot of us, a lot of the guys I served with, guys and gals, they were in a similar boat, right, where they were restless, they were discontent. This was a good option for them to turn a new leaf in their life. And I think we all, for being honest, got a lot more out of it than what it cost us. Um, so super proud. I mean, the military is all about adapting and overcoming.
Yep.
Boot camp is just one example of that, man. You go into boot camp, you get yelled at. You're a part of like, you have this really small job where you're shining the chrome or you're folding laundry or you're cleaning the latrine and restrooms. And it's like, everybody has a specific job that ultimately supports the greater mission, which is making sure that our room is at this expectation because that's the prerequisite, that's a requirement. So you start to develop a sense of purpose. You start to understand and kind of see the macro view of everybody's playing a position in the mission. It's just, that mission and that organization is taking out bad guys
Yeah.
and being, so definitely a little bit of a different company and operation. But to answer the question, man, I think I'm better having had served, as an entrepreneur, as a friend, as a husband, all those things. Cause you know, got out of my own way
Yeah.
and
I
joined.
I always thought, Israel has an interesting thing where everyone has to do 2
Mhm.
years or whatever. And I always found that interesting because I think nowadays, especially in the United States, maybe we need something to bring everyone together and almost forcing people. I'm not saying we need to send everyone to war or anything like that, or you need to go into active duty, but at least like doing what you're saying, the boot camp, going through adversity. Cause I just feel like a lot of people, especially nowadays, um, you just don't have any sort of adversity. And if they do, it's like, they need a therapist to go talk to it about instead of dealing with it. So, I find it interesting that Israel does that. And maybe, I don't know, what's your insight on that? Do you think that would make any sort of sense?
I
Let's say if
think,
it's not full time, it's right, it's part time. You don't have to do it for 2 years or whatever. After you go on the weekends, I don't know, after work
I,
or whatever.
I mean, I'm a big advocate for it, especially if you're somebody that's in the situation that I was where, I didn't have direction. I
Mhm.
didn't have money really to go to college, and I knew if I went to college, I wasn't going to be studying. I would
Yeah.
have been, pursuing extra curriculars, and um, I was, so I say that I sent my own brother, right? My brother's in the Air Force now, and previously he was working at Walmart, and
Sure.
now he's working on radio telecommunication systems, and he's got a bunch of certifications, and he's getting paid to do those things and developing relationships. And so I think, you know, I think it's a great thing, but it requires sacrifice. It requires you giving up a lot of your pleasures in pursuit of, a future version of yourself and a future. Yeah, that's hard to do, man. It's scary, right? I can
Yeah.
think back and be like, I don't want to die. I don't want to go to war. I don't want to. But for me, I think it was an easier decision because I was in trouble, right?
Mhm.
I was messing around and reaping those results. So for me, it was a little bit easier decision to be like, okay, well, if not this, what? So I don't know, man. I think it's a great thing, but if you were to make it mandatory, would it take away from some of the quality of people coming in? And um, all in all, I think to your point, man, like just developing grit and characteristics through adversity.
Mhm.
Those are some of the most successful people I've ever met. Is people that have been through tough stuff and come through it with the learning experiences and the calluses, right?
Yep.
And yeah, I think the most successful people seek those opportunities.
Well, that's why
Kind
business
of in a
owners
crazy
talk
way.
to business owners, right? Because
Mm,
I mean, realistically, no one else really knows the tribulations that a business owner goes through, right? If you've always been an employee of a company, sure, you'll have some insight, but or even a salesperson, right? Because a salesperson, especially if you're commission only, I mean, you are
mm,
essentially, for the lack of a better word, a business owner. Maybe you just obviously don't have employees or a team to run, but you are responsible for your own income. And it seems like obviously a lot of the business owners I know, I mean, their background is sales, or if you're starting a business, I mean, you have to sell, right?
mm,
It's not like, and that's what I always say. It's like you're going to have to sell. Everyone sells every day of their life in certain aspects of whatever you're doing. Um, yeah, so it's interesting on that side of things. Okay. So Air Force, so you get out, what eventually led you to start making apps for yourself? Because I know that's kind of where you started, was just building this stuff for yourself, and then eventually you started building, for other companies as well. So kind of take us through that process.
yeah, man. So I had a great time in the service, traveled around good places, bad places, developed skills, characteristics, relationships. I wasn't able to reenlist after my third deployment. I got injured, blew my right knee out,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
that's when my college days started. So really, it was restlessness and discontent. I was so depressed and like transitioning away from the military service that I was doing well in, that I loved. I had my sort of band of brothers and just a system, a cadence that I was used to. And then to go to university and have a completely different speed of people that I was around. I remember feeling like cattle, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like I went to school, I was excited, like to do a great job in school and get good grades and keep improving and make money. And when I got to school, what was crazy is I remember walking into class first day and it was like syllabus day or whatever they call it. The
Yep.
professor's talking about what to expect, and like people weren't even paying attention. Like here's me, this nerd in slacks and a collared shirt, like ready to, clean
Ready to
haircut,
take
like
it on.
ready
Yeah.
ready to learn, man. I was a scholastic weapon. And the rest of the kids, like I remember kids had headphones in, they were propped up on the desk and like having side conversations. Meanwhile the professor's talking about what we're going to get into, and it was just crazy. I was just like, holy shit, this is a way different environment, man. Like these people don't even care. Just the energy was different, and the vibe was off.
Yeah,
So,
I think, I think college is interesting because looking back at it, I did very well like all through school, through high school. And I just really don't have to try very hard to do well on tests and shit like that, which thank God for me because I hate studying. Um but looking back on my college days, I think I had a great time, but I could have done a lot more.
mm,
And I feel like college really, you're not set up for success. I think sending, an 18 or 19-year-old to college, sure. Sometimes you're mature enough to go in, make those decisions, be able to go to school, not be able to be in your way from everything, right? Usually you travel, so you're no longer at home. I went to Mizzou, so it was just me and a bunch of my friends that, came from my area and we hung out, we partied. I went to some classes, I got my degree, but it's like, I don't feel like I learned anywhere near what I could have. I don't think I had the experiences when it comes to actual business connections, say, for example, and
Mm,
things like that. I didn't really take advantage of the opportunity. Again, I had a good time. I wouldn't trade it. And I don't, look back on it, but I do look back on it, but looking back, I'm like, I could have done a lot more. I could have made that time a lot more valuable for my future self, but I was 20. I
right.
didn't care at that point. And
Yeah,
it
man, you
wasn't
get
even like I
into
didn't
it.
care, but it's like you know what I mean? You don't know. It's like I'm 20. I'm going to school,
Right.
I'm getting my degree, but really it's like you're spending a ton of money. You're spending
Mm,
an absolute ton of money. A lot of these degrees realistically now aren't going to get you the amount of money that you're putting in for these degrees in the first place. So I feel like a lot of people my age and moving on now, it's like I cannot fathom going to school for the majority of people.
yeah. I so I was like you. I wanted to do a great job, but I didn't know all the resources that the university provided. I went to a small sort of, I was getting my general, right? General degree, is that what it is?
Yeah,
Was
yeah.
it just general studies? And
Mhm.
I just remember being so bored and unenlightened. And I didn't get involved in extracurriculars. I don't know how many there were, but I think the main thing was that I didn't orient like my mind to a plan or to a vision of who I wanted to become. So, like an example, if I want to go
Mhm.
to the gym, it's like, okay, I have this picked out physique, I have this picked out goal. I know about this environment. I know like what exercise machines to do and what it's going to take. I never really had that same sort of plan or formula at university. I just had the desire to do well, whatever that meant.
Yep.
And, and I think that is like a young mind sort of thing. I'm always really impressed when I meet younger people that seem to have it together a little bit more so, like on this plan or this trajectory. And that can be a moving target, but just to all in all, just be maximizing what you can get from something is a good way to be.
Yeah.
And to now when I go into universities and I'm teaching or speaking, whatever, and I am now able to just see it at a different level. I can see the different areas for certifications, or I can see just the programming and who the teachers are and the alumni. And it's like, my gosh, there's so many rich opportunities at universities that I think just get slept on,
Yep.
unfortunately. And the same thing's true at like, the county or city level, like different programs and whatnot. So, man, I would encourage anybody just to start planning out, and then using resources like ChatGPT or Google to
Mhm.
start finding, these things that are going to be helpful in your backyard or at your school. But for me, man, I went to school, got super burnout, depressed, and that was the catalyst to start seeking other things. So for me, what made sense, I'd heard you'd make a ton of money doing contracting. I got in. It's kind of an invite only sort of deal. I knew people that were in. They let me in. I went and lived in Kuwait and Dubai for a little over 3.5 years, doing similar work so I did for the government, but as a civilian, and made a ton of money. And long story short, just became, again, restlessness and discontent. My back was against the wall. I was tired of being in the desert. I was tired of working long days. I was out in the sun a lot.
Yeah.
Just
So what were you
you
guys
know,
doing? Security or
yeah. So similar to what I did in the military, I was a police officer
okay.
and did some security work, which is glorified sort of gate guard.
Sure.
And then I got into PSD, which is personnel security detail. So I moved with people to certain places to help them get there and avoid any sort of conflicts or nonsense, help them get in and out faster. There was no, hostile situations in Kuwait or Dubai. It was an amazing place to be if you're going to be in the desert, really.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, man. So it was around my third year. I was so ready to go. A lot of my friends left contract, and it was just me and a bunch of new guys. And I had a bad attitude, and I'd go to work pissed off, and I'd leave pissed off. And that was great, looking back at it, because I put together a notebook. I had a big notebook where I would
Mhm.
write down my escape plans. It's like, okay, well, I could open a franchise. What's that cost? Or what's this? Could it pay me on these wealth pillars that I'm aiming for? Can I own my time? Can I, because I was cool at the time with just, or at that time, I was thinking if I can make half the money I'm making now, but own my life, like I'm in. Like, what
Yep.
do I need to do? I had some risk tolerance built up as far as like money saved up. So, long story short, software made sense. And I started with no formal education, just belief on fire that I could bring an idea to life. I needed developers, and I got scammed.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
I lost thousands of dollars in
So where'd you
time.
go to get scammed? Were you on Upwork or Fiverr or one of those?
Yeah, I found this dude. I think it was Upwork.
Mhm.
Can't remember his name, but I remember the situation. Basically, I was trying to build a social media platform, and he told me he was the guy. And I sent him money. I kind of wired it through, and he kept coming up with these elaborate reasons why he wasn't done. And
Sure.
finally, at the end, I was pissed. I'm like, dude, it's been 11 months. You haven't sent me anything like this, that, or the other. And he sent me this picture. I don't know if it was like photoshopped or what, but he was like beat up. He was like in this, he got beat, or maybe it was real. I don't know. Maybe he did actually get beat up. But anyway, yeah. So some dude on Upwork, and uh, which was just a part of my journey, man. So like after that, I went
So
and
the
found.
platform didn't get your back though? Did you reach out to them and try and get your money back, or were you just like, "Fuck it"?
No, I think it was, dude. I was so busy working
Yeah.
overseas, and
Yeah.
I was making so much with no wife and kids. I was just like, you know what?
Yeah.
That's my. I should have known better anyway. Like, here's what I learned. Here's what it costs for the education. And I ended up telling the guy, hey man, you know what you did or didn't do? Like, have a great life. Like,
Mhm.
good luck to you. Who knows where he's at? Shout out scammer,
Yeah.
wherever he's at now. Maybe he's in St. Louis, dude. Maybe he's gonna listen to this.
Yeah, shout out
If
scammer.
he's there, pay me back, man.
Yeah, that's right.
Be a good guy.
Or
Um,
actually build the app.
yeah, or yeah, let me see that. Let me log in. Um, so anyway, I found a friend back home saw that I was like trying to build a platform, and he worked with developers. I started working with his team. We had a falling out big time with the guy that was our project manager. He was basically brokering us to a development team overseas, and communication was bad. The time difference was bad. It was just this really tough experience. But we had launched software. So long story short, I met my partner. His name's Vineet, and started building with our company Logic Square, and then slowly but surely became a very big part of the team. Right. So now I'm president and in operations, and I build that company with my team. So that's kind of the short story, shorter version.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
it's just, if I could give a recommendation, if you want to build a software or an app, start with a design, like a clickable prototype. There's a ton of tools you can design with, but
What do
then
you use, like
also
Figma for that, or what do you usually
Figma's
use?
tough. I use UiZard.
Okay.
You can take pictures. It has AI components to it, drag and drop sort. You don't have to, have a degree or certification to use the tool. It's super easy to get at least a blueprint or a design that's functional, to then communicate with an engineering team. And I highly recommend just talk to somebody who's already built platforms,
Yep.
and then ask them who they work with,
Mhm.
and find trusted developers who so you don't have to waste your time and money like I did, because it's very challenging to bring an idea to life, and the biggest thing that kills it is ambiguity.
Yep.
Or yeah, is that the word? It's
Ambiguity.
ambiguity.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Well,
Yeah,
it's
that
funny,
word.
I was just talking about this on the Marketing Monday episode that we put out on Vi Media's channel, and I was talking about, having past success. I was like, if you're, because we specialize in home service companies, so plumbers, anyone that works on or around a house, that's really
Mm,
our clientele, and we handle everything digital marketing for them. And you know, w- it just when it comes to that, sticking strictly to home service companies has always been a big thing for us. And I think, a lot of the time, and we'll actually talk to them because we actually were talking beforehand about how you work with the government a lot and how they don't have basic stuff set up. And it's really a product of like small business because like that's
mm,
most small businesses as well. They don't have CRM set up. They're still using Excel sheets. Or we had clients a couple years ago. We don't work with them anymore. That literally had a notebook that you're writing on right now for all of their leads, and that's literally he'd go through pages in our meetings, and I'm like, this just isn't going to work. It's absolutely crazy. And there's so much technology now out there for business owners, and, with CRMs, with AI capabilities, I mean, shit. When we built out CRMs 8 years ago, when we started this company in Zoho, it was a nightmare
mm,
building out, a CRM. Now it's a hell of a lot easier because you don't have to do a lot of the heavy lifting.
mm,
Remember, filtering and everything took forever. And I was like, this is an absolute nightmare. So, I'm curious when it comes to working with the government. 'Cause it seems like they have such a big budget that, of course, we all pay for.
Hmm.
It seems like, what was the healthcare site that, healthcare.gov, cost to build? So healthcare.gov apparently had already cost 840 million as of July. Total cost estimated $2 billion.
Hmm.
Okay. I know what, healthcare.gov was because before, what was it, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, before we actually got insurance and we were, rolling in some good money at Vi, I had to have it. And it's like it just shows the different insurance policies. How
Mm.
hard is this? 2 billion? So, my I guess my question is, is it just the case that these people don't know really how much they need to be spending to get these jobs done? Or is it they don't care? Or
Mm.
is it, just you have a buddy, you have a friend, you get 10 bids, but you still use that person because maybe they're throwing some money back at you at the back end.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, just what are your thoughts on why, maybe I'm thinking about it entirely wrong. I don't know. It just seems like if you go to governmental agency, they're like, we need this. And then you go to a small business, right? The small business is going to pay significantly less.
Mm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, so there's at a national level, I think there is a major issue that no one's talking about yet,
Hmm.
and that is a shortage of smalls or small businesses that are even certified or in the system to bid or do business with the government.
Interesting.
That's a major issue because it's very challenging to get certified. It's not a great user experience. Go figure, right? It's
Yeah.
bureaucratic. There's a lot
Yeah.
of certifications. There's a lot of information that they need in order to get you into sam.gov or certified to even bid. And then knowing how to bid, right? Where do I go to see these? And then how do I read these? How do I make sense of these? What are they actually looking for, wanting? And then more importantly, how do I develop relationships where I can show my capabilities? So it really is a challenging world. I think it's worth it, but I would never advise like a company that's new to make that their chief aim to go and
Yeah.
do business with the government. Like start B2B or B2C first, simultaneously be working with advisors or people to help you get prepared to do business with the government or state,
Is there a good
because it is a good
organization for
vertical.
that?
Say again.
Is there a good organization for that? Because I've probably talked to a handful of people that have like a business that literally that is their business. Is
Yeah.
like you pay them, or I guess they're more of a consultant, if you will, but essentially
There's
they'll walk you through the process, make sure you have everything you need, and get it submitted.
Yeah, there's third parties and they'll charge you anywhere from 5 or 15 grand. And that's an option. You can do that and you can find reputable ones that are good. The free options, you can go to your SBDC. I was telling you
Oh,
earlier
yeah?
before we
Okay.
start, like SBDC near me. If you Google that, you can find advisors in your backyard that will then probably have connections with an organization called Apex, APEX. Um, Apex, that's their mission, is to help people get set up to do business with the government. They've got PDFs, they've got instructions, they've got personnel that can help. Those are free resources. And then I think once you're oriented, you understand kind of what to expect, then you can maybe choose if you want to, go the civilian route, or sorry, the third party route, to, go about that process. But there's also resources on YouTube, right?
Mhm.
That's part of how I learned how to do it, is I watched guys bid live, and whether they're pest control companies or you name it, the government buys everything. The government really operates because of business owners that sell them things, whether it's bombs, whether everybody thinks it's just like, weapons. It's not.
Sure.
It's a challenging industry. It's an industry, but they also need you know, landscapers. They also
Mhm.
need signs. They need waitresses. They need, you name it. They have a need for it. Um,
So do
you know,
they need more competition? Is that kind of the problem it sounds like in some of these avenues? Maybe they're
definitely,
just not I mean,
definitely. They're not. I mean, the people that are in they're typically really large companies,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they have other people that are in that know how to leverage this sort of industry and world, and they're capable, right? So it's like if you can work with someone that's capable, that's shown you a track record, you're gonna want to work with that to limit the risk of a failed project or more paperwork on your end as a government sort of contract officer. Like now there are prerequisites. There's a lot of like legal prerequisites. So you know, I I don't know enough to say that it doesn't. I'm sure it happens to some degree, right? Or
sure.
somebody's getting hooked up because they're a homie.
Yeah,
But is it supposed to work that way? No. Is there corruption or you know people that are exploiting systems? Of course, right? So I think part of the hope, right, is more people learn how to do it, more people get their hat in the arena, and then we can provide really great products or projects for the Fed
yeah.
that I think needs a lot of new businesses.
Maybe
My
we
thought.
actually need to explore that avenue at Vi then, because we yeah, I just some of the marketing and some of the stuff that, the federal and even state government builds is just it's just terrible. And
They
I
need a
know how
lot of
much
help.
they're spending on some of the like our state, they just rebuilt the Secretary of State website, and I don't even want to look up how much they spent on that. And it's just like things like that. I'm like, I would love to go in and actually be like, hey, we're gonna do a good job and hopefully not waste not only the government's money, but at the end of the day, our money, right?
Yeah, no, it's possible, man. And again, SBDC, Apex, those are two good
So
keywords
is that
that you or
Apex
anybody.
Group, the Apex Foundation? Is that what you're talking about?
Apex, I can
'Cause
look it up.
I was
They,
actually looking that on Google, and I
if you just look up like Apex, government contracting.
ah,
If you look up Apex government, it's
there we
apexaccelerators.com,
go. Okay, I
or
see it
sorry,
now.
.us,
Yep,
apexaccelerators.us. You go there, you can learn a little bit about who they are, what their mission is, but essentially their job is to help people get involved in the government selling sort of arena at a federal level. I
gotcha.
don't know if they do state stuff or not. Either way, if you go see your SBDC advisors or directors in your area, they'll be able to navigate you to the right, you know, personnel. And I'm just, there's so much opportunity out there, man. Hopefully that alone is good for, yeah, but just be ready. The government's a totally different, some of this is like, your psychological stance
Mhm.
on this too. Like the government is a completely different buyer than a customer. So there's going to be annoyances. So the more you can learn, the better you'll be able to get income and kind of work synergistically with this beast that we call the government. So
Yeah, yeah. No, that's super helpful. Appreciate
yeah,
it. Perfect. So let's get into some of the things that you've built, some of the programs, some of the apps here. So I know you got 5 different ones on your website: Trade Hub Pro, Closewise, Sendly, Score, Clear, and True Fans. So do you
hmm
want to talk about all of them? Do you just want to hit on a couple? What do you want to do here?
we can talk about whichever one you want to talk about, and yeah, and just go from there. You pick one.
So let's go first. What was your first one?
The first one in that batch that you just mentioned was True Fans.
Okay. Okay. And is that your most successful?
So as far as like money wise, currently, but I don't think it's gonna last that way. There's some that are competing with it for sure.
Gotcha.
Hey there, St. Louis podcast listeners. We've got some exciting news from our friends over at Farmers Insurance of St. Louis, led by the man, the myth, the legend, Mark Lee of Farmers Insurance.
Mhm.
If you're looking for a job or to own your own business under a brand that everyone and their cousin is familiar with, Mark Lee with Farmers Insurance of St. Louis is recruiting insurance agency owners here in St. Louis for their Farmers Insurance Mentorship Program.
And as many of you are aware, Garrett and I have owned quite a few successful and award-winning businesses over the years, and in a past life, one of those was a farmers insurance agency out of Chesterfield, Missouri.
Eric and I know firsthand how hard it is to start a business under a brand that no one has heard of and convince consumers and businesses to trust that you're an authority figure in your industry.
And as many of you know, we own an award-winning marketing firm, Vi Media, the one that Garrett was just discussing. And building that company's reputation literally took years. We're still building it to this day, and it's been 8 years in the making. However, with the Trusted Farmers insurance agency name on the building. We got started when we started our farmers insurance agency. The trust was already built and has been for 96 years.
And if you can't do math, that means Farmers Insurance has been around since 1928. Luckily, you don't need to be a human calculator to get rich as an owner of your very own Farmers Insurance agency.
Nope. All you have to do is reach out to the one and only Mark Lee, the leader of Farmers Insurance in the greater St. Louis metropolitan area.
That's right. So ensure he continues to sponsor our show and your favorite podcast, the St. Louis Podcast, by quitting your job today and calling Mark Lee. I wouldn't even wait for him to answer your call. Call your boss now, quit, and become your very own business owner.
Visit insurancecareerstl.com. That is insurancecareerstl.com. Should we spell it out?
Yes. It would
INSURANCE, career, CAREER, STL.com, insurancecareerstl.com. Go there now. Back to the podcast.
And wait, insurancecareerstl.com.
Back to the podcast. So, okay, so let's talk about True Fans. So, platform for creators by creators. So, it kind of looks to me like similar to, let's just say, a Patreon or an OnlyFans or something like that. So, I guess from an outside perspective, or really from you from an inside perspective, what's kind of the differentiating factors? Because you said before you even built this, you went in and you were like, what issues are users or the actual creators encountering? And what can we then fix, solve to make it even better, and then build True Fans?
Yeah. That's just, anytime we set out to build something, it's not that we've, we have this great idea. It just comes to us typically when we're seeing there's gaps in the market, or when we do reconnaissance or exploring other platforms, right? Or other things that are out there. We're trying to figure out, why are we the logical choice? So for True Fans, the same thing happened, right? We went out to the market. We saw coffee. We saw Patreon, I think Patreon was one of the first to market. And we started looking at where they suck, where they're doing great, where people are happy. We look at reviews. We look at testimonials. We look at, operating systems. We look at like who's a part of the team. We look at their websites, and we start to gather intelligence. So where we found opportunity was, pretty much everybody was adult centered. It's like every one of our competitors, it's like hosting porn and adult content. It's like, okay, well, here's one area where I think we can stand out. We can be 100% invite only, not just anybody can join. And we're not going to allow porn. We're going to be a place where this bigger demographic of people want to monetize, get paid to post, but don't want the stigma, can go and, preserve their reputation while increasing profit. Right. And what's interesting is we found that, because we have some creators that are on both, right? Us and OF. We want them to maximize their income. We're not sticklers. Like, you have to only be with us. Like, we like free market. But, we've seen folks that are doing, completely letting it all out, right? Make less than someone, if we're talking about models, make less than someone who's preserving or just, posting more artistic and lingerie boudoir. And it's just interesting to see that, like, you really are selling yourself short. If you're in business and you're an entrepreneur minded, like, you're selling yourself short, giving everything away. And, I think that, I don't know what's going to happen years from now. Are people going to look back and be like happy that they were on there and that they've made X amount of dollars? But I don't know.
I've been a big person that attacks OnlyFans, because like there, in St. Louis, there was some teacher that got fired for having an OnlyFans, and then everyone was like, so I made a post on Facebook a couple months ago, and I got I would say, I'd honestly say it's pretty evenly split. Maybe a few more people agreed with me, but I had hate. They were like, let her work, right? Let her make that money. And I'm like, then don't be a teacher. You know what I mean?
There's this crazy hive mind, man, where people like,
hold on,
don't even have their own like thoughts.
Yeah, even better. So there was a guy that posted, a father, and I was like, you wouldn't have a problem with your kid, that teacher being your kid's teacher, and he said no. And I'm like, you're fucking lying. There's no way. There's no way you honestly think that. I don't believe that for 1 second.
I look at, like, porn is highly addictive. You get into even like the physiological sides of it. Like, and we're under attack, like as men. I'll say that this is the truth. You know, you might be scrolling on Instagram looking at like entrepreneur stuff or a new truck, whatever it is that you're looking at. The next thing you know, there's a naked chick on your screen or like
Yeah.
half naked.
Yep.
And that does something in the chemistry of your brain. Like we're wired to be attracted. And I think, as a Christian guy, we're given like this sexual desire. It's a beautiful thing, but used in the wrong way, like that becomes a lustful desire that erodes you internally. And what is happening right now is there's a ton of people that have a lot of shame. There's
Mhm.
a lot of people that can't be honest and very vulnerable about, hey, I've got an addiction to porn and I've got an addiction to sexual sin and immorality. And, for a platform, right, to any platform that's a part of that monetization, it's, you got to look at that and like morally, what are you about? What are you not about? And everybody has their own, you can make your own choices. But that being said, if you're not being honest with yourself, then you can't be honest with other people.
Yeah.
And when you're honest with yourself and you start identifying, here's things that are prosperous in my life versus here are things that are detracting and taking from me, that's when I think either as an entrepreneur, an individual, community citizen, a human, you start really, planning out your purpose and your fulfillment and your, you start to align. And there's so many people, man, that will just regurgitate what they heard or what they think the community or the hive mind wants
Yeah.
them to hear.
Mm-hmm.
That is the scariest thing about like where I hear and see a lot of uh citizens, right? We'll just say the United States. There's so many people that just band together in community over a topic that they haven't spent time really kind of hashing out or thinking through. And the saddest thing, and I hope we change this in the future, is like if you have an opposing opinion, like you're ostracized, you're beat up, you're cut off because like people own they almost take on like the identity of their ideas
Yep.
instead of being able to critique them and share different ways of perceiving or looking at things professionally.
Yes.
And like, dude, here's what I think the solution is, and I'll get off my soapbox, but I think it's love. I think if everybody realizes like we're very similar,
Well, if you love
and
yourself,
I'll, I'll
you
break it
wouldn't
down.
be you probably wouldn't be on OnlyFans, and you probably wouldn't be paying for OnlyFans.
Right. But like when there's like love, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we understand one another. This is like on the topic of critiquing ideas and being in community. And I think that community creates prosperous evolution. But it's like when you, for example, right? Like we just met, but dude, have you ever fell in love?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Hey, dude, so have I.
Yeah.
I know what that feels like deeply. Have you ever been afraid?
Absolutely.
Me too. I've been terrified before. I've had anxiety. I know what that feels like, man. Like and because of these things, right? I love you. Like
Mm-hmm.
genuinely, I can say that to about anybody I meet. It's like, okay, well, have you been excited? Have you been proud? Dude, me too. I'm thinking about like times right now where I was proud and excited. And that's what makes us connect. I don't know your story. I don't know everybody's full story. That's the missing link. But all these things that we've experienced are very, very similar. They're the same.
Mm-hmm.
And when everybody starts to realize that, like, we have those things in common, it doesn't matter. All the things that the world is telling you, to really fixate and focus on. I don't know. I think when there's love and a sort of a baseline level of respect and admiration, then we can start being a team. There's no divided team that wins anything. I don't care if you're playing chess, football, anything. So I don't know. I can get on a soapbox. It's sad, but I do what I can with what I have right where I'm at, man. And I pray to be used and to be, to ultimately do kingdom work, man. That's like this new purpose.
I think we just need to make it so all porn goes back to VHS, DVD. You have to go, magazine. You have to go to this. If you want it, you got to go get it.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, that was the thing back in the day. I mean, everyone's like, yeah, they found a porn magazine in the woods, right? That was like that was a common thing. And I mean, now it's just you go to Google and you can find anyone. But,
Right.
you know, we kinda said something before, it's like, what's the long-term effect of this? That's what I'm curious
Sure.
about. Because I know, you know, I would feel really bad if I had a friend that was on there or paying,
Hmm.
either way, um, anyone I met, because I just, like, I don't long term, what's that going to do, you know? Okay, maybe, like, if you're not in that industry, why would someone wanna be with you, right, as a partner? I find it hard to be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna, you know, marry an OnlyFans partner or an
Mm.
OnlyFans person," right? Unless you're in that industry, then, of course, it makes a little bit more sense.
I
And if you're okay with that, I guess, then that's fine. Obviously, there's men that aren't gonna have a problem with it regardless either, but it's just it's really a hard pill to swallow, and I feel like it's detrimental the longer it goes on, and do OnlyFans, I don't care, but it's like, you know, what are the long-term effects just for society in and of
Mhm.
itself? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, what happens when this is a terrible thought that I think about. What happens when your son's in school and his friends find,
Mom.
mom or aunt or whomever, and you know, or that question comes up, "Hey, mom, did you ever do this? Were
Yep.
you involved?" It's like, who do you want to be, right? What matters to you? And there's so many skills and things that, if you're a pretty person, right? That's great. It's a
Mhm.
wonderful thing. It's a blessing. But you can be pretty and do bow fishing, or drive a tractor,
Mhm.
or weld things, build supercars. I mean, race. Like, I've got a daughter, man, and I love her, and I want her to have the world. I want her to, to go out and be successful. My biggest fear is how she's going to be looked at by us men, and that that terrifies me to a certain extent, because I know that a lot of men are sick.
Yeah.
They're sick and they won't admit it, because it's the hardest thing to do, is to be vulnerable with yourself and other people around you and say, "Hey, I'm trying to lead my company, but I'm meanwhile behind the scenes, the mask you don't see is I'm addicted to porn,
Mhm.
and or I'm addicted to, fill in the blank,
Name
right?"
it.
But we
Yep.
all have these masks on. But if the moment that if you really want to change, it starts with accountability, vulnerability, and realizing that you're not alone, you're not special. Like, having this as a thorn in your side, and dude, statistics are in, man. I know, I'm saying this. I hope somebody's hearing me that's a leader in maybe even in the church, right? Or a leader in a community, or a leader in a company, or a leader that's feeling like that shame and
It says
discontent.
10% of men are addicted to porn.
Yeah.
I don't
I would
know
say
if
it's
this
even
is
higher now.
I don't know if this is real.
But my thing is, like, for the guys, right?
That's
And dude, I
insane.
was in
1
an
out of 10?
environment.
1 out of 10.
Yeah, dude, and I was in an environment in the military where it was, like, celebrated. It's like, you can
Mm.
drink booze, you can have chicks, you can be promiscuous, porn's fine, like, it's just a tool that we use. And, so personally, right? Like, I feel this, but you have to start, like, monitoring, okay, how do you feel after you partake? Right? Whether we're talking about booze, we're talking about porn, talking about these things that are
Mhm.
vices, like,
Mhm.
how do you feel?
Usually feel like shit afterwards.
Right. What's happened?
Feel
Okay. Well,
bad
why
about
is
yourself,
that? What's
yeah.
going on in my brain? What's going on? What is the alternative? Or if you've done a habitual behavior for, if you're like me, years,
Mhm.
dude, like, until you're able to confidently, or vulnerably say, "Me too,"
Yeah.
you're just going to stay in this hidden sort of zone. And I believe truly that, truth will set you free. The truth does set us free. And there is no real, like, active wage against this industry. There's a growing, like, number of people that said, "No, it's fine. It's
Yep.
fine. It's totally good. It's totally good." I disagree with that. I
Well,
think that it's
states are trying to limit, like, your ability to get online. I know some states are like, you have to now submit your ID, I think, or something
sure.
like that.
And dude, I have a mixed. I am for way less government
I know,
personally.
so
It's like, I really am, like
that's where
I
I
don't
fall, and I'm like,
I don't think that, like, dude, it's gonna be there. There's no way that you can get rid of, like, where if there's limitations or whatever, it's like, you're
right, you're
still
always
gonna
gonna
find
find something.
ways
Yep.
until you are ready to pivot.
Yeah.
Or, if you're truly open to
It's called a VPN.
I think we're all pushing for this ideal life,
Mhm.
right? We're all aiming for the best return on investment that we can get in this short time lived on life. And it's like, what's crazy is we live almost like in an upside down world, where if you did everything you wanted to do, if you ate the cake, ordered the pizza, had the beer, smoked the weed, did the drugs, like if you lived completely for the world, like you're a slave.
Mhm.
Whereas I've done this, dude. Like I was in that lifestyle, in that world until I realized I was not happy and I got sold a scam. But on the flip side of this, if you're a disciple, you're disciplined, right? Let's just use that word. You're disciplined, and you've defined what are your non-negotiables, what are the things that you stand for, and uh, how you're going to live your life. What is your idol, right? And you start creating behaviors that are in line with this chief aim. Uh, when you start to get healthier,
Yep.
but it's hard, and you just have to pick your hard, man. And I don't think I think so many of us are distracted,
I was
and
gonna say it goes
unfortunately,
back
it
to
takes like
distraction.
ground. Yeah.
Well, okay, so when I was a kid, even you had dial-up internet. I mean, now you have your phone in your pocket. You're always scrolling, you're listening to something. You never have a second
Mm,
for yourself. And so therefore, you never have those deep dark thoughts that come and bother the fuck out of you because you don't even have the opportunity to even experience that in the first place. You know what
yeah.
I mean?
Yeah. And
So
why? Then you start thinking about like, why is that? Why
mhm.
is this? Then you start looking at the world differently.
Yep.
You start reading the ingredients labels. I don't want to put my tinfoil hat on, but you put your tinfoil hat on. Go to the grocery store. If you have any understanding of what's at the gas station, what's at the grocery store, it's like, dude, only like 10% of it is food.
Yep.
Like the rest is science and profit, at least here in the US. And that sucks, right? But
Well,
but the same way is
yeah.
true with the ingredients labels on music, the ingredients labels on media, the ingredients labels on, like, if you start living your life as if everything has a nutritional label, it's either going to feed you towards your goal or it's going to
Mm.
starve you towards your demise. And you are for sure under attack in a lot of different ways. Um, and until you put on, like, your armor,
Yeah.
you put on like your binoculars or your x-ray vision, um, it sucks that it's that way, but here we are. You're in this is the world.
Yeah, and even when you try and avoid it, you can't, right? Like you were saying, my Instagram is clean and means I don't follow like any chicks that post
Mm,
stuff like that. It's all business. It's suits, it's shoes, it's hiking, it's the outdoors. But there's still the reels that pull
yeah,
up of like a chick in a bikini and I'm like, "Why?" I don't want to click on that. I'm not going to click on it. Why is it always there? But Instagram knows what they're doing. We'll
yeah,
just put it that
yeah.
way.
And dude, just like the tab, they used to do it at the checkouts if they're not already doing it. It's just we're so used to it now at the checkouts at grocery stores, the magazines, the swimsuits,
Yep.
that used to be the ad that got people to, ooh, right. It
Mhm.
it gets your attention, and there's this war over attention. And I think the winner of that war should be the individual. And just to realize that, right? Like there's a war for your attention. Who are you going to give it to, and
Yep.
why? Is such an important thing, I think, to regulate, if for yourself first, and then you can lead your family, your kids, the people in your life. But in short, man, yeah. So did reconnaissance. True fans. We desired to make it a wholesome alternative for creators that want to make money without the
Yeah.
stigma.
I love that. I love
we
that.
we made it invite only. We pay more. We paid faster. We launched instant payouts, and we have never run ads. We've always had direct outreach to
Mhm.
people that we would want to work with, or even referrals that come from people we've already worked with or communicated with.
Sure.
And then we go through like this application sort of demo onboarding process where we find out who they are, where they're at, where they want to go, and then we give them sort of this tour, of the environment that we built. And the future, I don't even think is. I'll just share this. Maybe somebody can build her. We can partner.
Here we go.
I think the future is not OnlyFans, Meta, True Fan, any of us. I think the future is going to be the reduced barrier for somebody to own their own space and have their own color scheme, have their own domain, own the servers, own the client database. And the company that's able to do that really well will take a micro percent. I've already started like brainstorming this platform. I have some wireframes and whatnot built. Thought about going the VC route just to learn and put a large amount of money behind the idea.
Yeah.
But I also have a bunch of other things that are on the shelf and stuff that you know. And honestly, man, the more I'm in tech, the more I kind of want to just be, Amish. Just want
Yeah,
to have this this homestead. Just get
exactly.
out of it.
Do you follow the All In podcast, like David Sachs or any of those guys?
I've seen it,
Okay.
but I don't follow it like,
I used to
actively.
listen to it a lot. It's interesting. They talk a lot about what's going on in San Francisco, VC, like anything
Mm,
tech related they're talking about. I haven't really listened to it much recently, but I used to listen to it all the time. Used to be a good podcast. All right. So other than that, so I just wanted to quickly ask you about ScoreClear. I
hmm
used to sell credit repair for like 2 years right out of college.
Yeah.
So I'm curious with disputing, and I don't even know if this is still the case. It used to be if you didn't dispute properly, like if you go on Credit Karma and dispute something, I don't know if it's still the case where like you are essentially waiving your right to redispute it. Does that
Um,
does that add up? You know what I'm talking about?
so so I did it. So basically how I even got to developing a platform. A buddy of mine approached me and said, "Hey, do you have an 800 credit score?" I replied, "No." He said, "Follow me. Hold my hand. I'm gonna show you about the matrix." In about 11 months, I sued and settled with the Department of Justice, USAA, TransUnion, Equifax, Experian. I learned about 15 USC 1681, which is the law as it pertains to fair credit reporting
Yeah.
and maximum accuracy. I just became an enlightened American citizen. I learned how to look at my credit reports and analyze inaccuracies and then fight those. Uh, and then I discovered how the whole interoperations work and how nobody even really understands how they fully work with the credit scoring system. And I think it's highly unconstitutional. And
It's bullshit.
I think it's not far away from being adapted to social scoring, and
Yep.
that scares
We're
me.
we're
But it's
getting there.
possible. It's
It's a
very possible.
100% possible.
So we built a platform. It hasn't launched yet, just because in all honesty, we're looking for someone who would be an excellent product manager. While I
Mhm.
know a lot, I don't know all the specifics. It's like I'm looking for maybe somebody who's an attorney that specializes in it, or
Yep.
somebody who has a ton of experience in that. I'd love to partner. There's an opportunity there for sure. But we built a platform that basically analyzes a user's 3 bureau report, uses a proprietary sort of filtering mechanism. From there, we can find and just really easily point to inaccuracies and then write a letter with AI based on those inaccuracies and then send letter out directly through the platform. And then the
Okay.
coolest part is on the back end, we want to partner with law firms that can see a marketplace
Yeah.
of users that came through and then decide to take them on. They would basically purchase a lead package and then work with that person. Meanwhile, the user is just kind of monitoring their information and informed now and can take action on their own. That is a large hill to climb,
Yeah.
but the only true way to repair your credit is through the legal system, period. There is no, you don't just send letters and hope for, like, there's so many people selling credit repair, and most of it is bullshit.
Yeah.
The only way to truly fix your credit is to get a settlement agreement from those bureaus, which requires that you go through the legal process. And yeah, there's a ton of people that are suffering from that have actual damages. That I could go on and on. Basically, the goal was to build a system that simplifies the process
Mhm.
of somebody understanding their situation and then getting the help legally
Yeah.
that they need to, kind of kick off that.
Well, if you have identity theft, I mean, if you have anything, your credit score can be ruined for the rest of your life. And
Yeah,
these
until you
companies
sue and
don't
settle.
give a shit. Yeah, yeah. So that's great advice. And what we used to do is essentially we would mail out those dispute letters, either
hmm
2 or 3 rounds of them. And if certain things weren't fixed or updated, then we sent it to the attorney that we worked with. So
Right.
that's kind of how we did it. And we had, they used to have to verify it, then they'd have to mail it back to them, and then they'd have to mail it, send it in to us. This was, what, 8, 9, 10 years ago, 8 to 10 years ago. So obviously a lot's changed since then. But I always, what's interesting is so our main business was, mortgage companies would send people to us, and
Yep.
then we would hopefully be able to get them into a position, depending on what was the issue, to get
Right.
back for approval for a mortgage. And what I found, and I've actually said this before on the podcast, is that you would take a white person, then you would take a black person, and you could have the same credit history. And I swear to God, the African American was going to have almost always a worse credit score. And
Mm,
I know race does not play a part in the credit score, supposedly, but what I think that they do, allegedly, let's just throw all the words out there,
mhm.
is that depending on where you live, they can easily factor in more likely than not, get an idea on your race. So I don't know if you've went through enough credit reports to notice that, but I went through probably thousands working there. And I was always like, I don't understand, dude. You have good credit history. You have like one late payment. And you're like, you, and
Yeah.
then you have a guy right next to you that has collections or whatever and has a better credit. It doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't.
The whole industry doesn't make sense, even at a technology level, like where they're getting data, how they're transferring it, receiving it. There are inaccuracies everywhere. They're using third party,
Yep.
international people like the Philippines
Hmm.
to process some of this data. And there's failures. There's human errors. There's the system itself is broken. And the system itself should never have been legally allowed to dictate somebody's financial literacy
Yep.
or opportunities in a free country.
Correct.
Never should I ever be able to assign you a number based on history that you've had that determines your financial like eligibility.
Yeah.
I think that's broken. I think it's unconstitutional. I think that I could get passionate. I think the people that own and operate these third party companies
A
that
hundred
have
percent.
set themselves up through the systems are despicable. And I think banks are fully capable, or anyone that's doing any fiduciary money sending are fully capable to vet and determine per their sole discretion
Yep.
who gets what money when and how.
Yep.
You don't need a third party agency to dictate that. Go back to the banks, go back to the money service
Well, it used to be
providers.
like your banker, right? You'd have I mean, you in the back in the, old days, right? Let's just
Mhm.
say in the 90s or even early 2000s, you'd still have like a local banker you could go to. They'd go through, everything, but now it's at such a national level, you don't have that personal connection anymore, and it's like they just default to the credit score, right? Instead of being like, I know Joe. Joe has a corner deli. I go to Joe's corner deli. Uh, you know, I see his receipts. I see all of this stuff. It's like that's how it should be done. But
Yeah,
now we're
private.
relying on a score, and thank God I have a good score because, like you, and I'm sure you know a hell of a lot more than me, but I know kind of how to work the system to make it work
Yep.
for me. And I've taught a lot of my friends that as well, which is nice. But it's still, it's like the number and okay, fine. Do you make money? Do you have paychecks? It's like that's really all they look at now.
There are a lot of people right now that have a bad score because of inaccurate information that they
Mhm.
don't know about, that uh, have actual damages, right? They've been denied credit cards, they've been denied a home loan, they've been denied a car, whatever, or they've been paying more costs for rent for
Yep.
years. Meanwhile, they have no idea that per the law at a federal level, like, you are protected from this nonsense because they're so well guarded at a legal level. It's
Mhm.
despicable. And
It's insane.
for any attorney that's playing the money side of this, like there's a special fuck you in my
I
heart
was yeah.
for somebody who is playing the advocate for these organizations they know in their heart and their head and their mind that are scavenging,
Oh,
essentially, or harming American people. Like, you're despicable. You are what I call a domestic terrorist.
that's fair. That's a great term for it.
It's true.
That's
And
exactly
the
what they
problem
are.
is it's just the education, right? It's the lack of understanding that most consumers, American citizens, have. I mean, I'm a big, like,
I also think it's a
dude,
way to
there's
make
so
people
many,
open
like,
credit
just
cards. It's also a way to make people open credit cards. It's a way to make people get loans. Because even if you make $1 million a year, right? Let's just
mhm,
say you've paid everything in cash your whole life. Your credit report and your credit score is not going to be good, even though
right.
you are 99% better than all of the people that have an 850 or whatever the hell the highest thing is now.
Yeah, dude. My exposure to the credit industry happened when I left the military, and 6 years later,
Yeah.
I get a letter in the mail saying that I had a collections for like $36 or $78. I can't remember. I had no clue, right? And you go through the checks and balances of leaving the military. They're supposed to, I didn't even carry it's called a GTC, a government travel card. When I deployed, I have this to pay for things with my squad commander. They hold them. So literally got out of the military, had no idea what credit was,
Yeah.
right? There's no formal training with that. But I think the first time I
Nor were
tried
we
to,
taught
tried
it,
to get a
right?
card,
Yeah.
the first time I tried to get a card, I was denied an Apple card.
Yep.
That's actual damage. It's 10 grand in actual damage. Tried again. It's another 10 grand actual damage. I was denied due to an inaccurate reporting on my score. I didn't know that at the time. So when I ran my 3 bureau report and I found these things, like, wait a minute, this is messed up. Like this should have never even, been there. I definitely refute this. Like this was of no fault of mine. It was the Department of Justice who represents the, what's it called? Basically DFAS, Defense Finance and Accounting Services, that dropped the ball on my end. And there was a whole cascade of defendants in my settlement. So I just wanted to tell the truth.
Yeah.
And I, with courage, man, because they tried to derail me every stage of this thing. And big scary attorneys that represent these multi-billion-dollar brands tried to, they play, and I don't even think it should be legal, but it is legal. They can give you psychological harm. They can create fear in your heart. They can give you anxiety. That's how they play the games. It's administrative bullies. And, throughout this whole thing, the truth was still the truth. These are inaccurate. Here's the law. Here's what's happened. Here's where I was when all these things were happening. Here's who I am as a person.
Yeah.
And, put me on trial. I'm a military veteran that was wronged by this system. I would love to put me in front of 12 of my peers and let me tell the truth. And then you can tell your truth.
You'd win the case every time if you put it in front of 12
peers. And I
peers.
had actual large, like I could have went further, but all I wanted was for them to own it and for them to pay me statutory and fix my score.
Yeah.
And then after that, I already knew, like, through the education that I received, I wanted to make it easier for other people to do it because it needs to be corrected. And then the beautiful thought that I have is, hey, let me send so many people their way that they have to make a change of the system. And I would love to be the person that helps them fix it.
Yeah.
Like, let me either sue me and attack me, and I'll just keep spinning up other means.
I just don't see them ever fixing it. Why would they?
I don't think they can at this point. I think
it's like too late.
I think it would take like a presidential level. Like, there's so much money being made in the industry too. It would wreck a lot of people's livelihood.
1000%.
But again, it's situations like that where people remain corrupt because they've built a lifestyle around it, and it's way easier to just continue on and kind of hush hush. And it's just it's like, it's your life.
Yeah.
Do that. A lot of these people that run these organizations, their kids go to Ivy League schools, man. They're super smart, and they've set up a foundation where they're millionaires to the backs of other people. And what honors in that,
Nothing. That's not American, right?
No,
it's not American.
There's a way that you can make a lot of money and not hurt people in the process.
It should be the only way to make money. All right, that's all the time we have for today. You want to tell the people where they can find you real quick, and we'll get out of here?
Yeah. So you can go to timbranyan.com. It's my website. It has all my social stuff on it. You can Google Tim Branyan, and that should get to me.
Perfect. Well, it was a pleasure. Thank you for coming on. As always, that is all the time we have for today. However, we will be back next week with a new episode. As always, if you are watching the podcast now and you want to start your own podcast, you just need help with editing and distribution, they can take care of you here at halfcoaststudios.com. And, of course, the best damn marketing company on the planet, Vi.media. Go there. You'll be able to talk to me. We appreciate everyone's support, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you.
Hey there, St. Louis podcast listeners. We've got some exciting news from our friends over at Farmers Insurance of St. Louis, led by the man, the myth, the legend, Mark Lee of Farmers Insurance. If you're looking for a job or to own your own business under a brand that everyone and their cousin is familiar with, Mark Lee with Farmers Insurance of St. Louis is recruiting insurance agency owners here in St. Louis for their Farmers Insurance Mentorship Program.
And as many of you are aware, Garrett and I have owned quite a few successful and award-winning businesses over the years. And in a past life, one of those was a farmer's insurance agency out of Chesterfield, Missouri.
Eric and I know firsthand how hard it is to start a business under a brand that no one has heard of and convince consumers and businesses to trust that you're an authority figure in your industry.
And as many of you know, we own an award-winning marketing firm, Vi Media, the one that Garrett was just discussing. And building that company's reputation literally took years. We're still building it to this day, and it's been 8 years in the making. However, with the Trusted Farmers Insurance Agency name on the building, we got started when we started our farmers insurance agency. The trust was already built and has been for 96 years.
And if you can't do math, that means Farmers Insurance has been around since 1928. Luckily, you don't need to be a human calculator to get rich as an owner of your very own Farmers Insurance Agency.
Nope. All you have to do is reach out to the one and only Mark Lee, the leader of farmers insurance in the greater St. Louis metropolitan area.
That's right. So ensure he continues to sponsor our show and your favorite podcast, the St. Louis Podcast, by quitting your job today and calling Mark Lee. I wouldn't even wait for him to answer your call. Call your boss now, quit, and become your very own business owner.
Visit insurancecareerstl.com. That is insurancecareerstl.com. Should we spell it out?
Yes. It would
INSURANCE, career, CAREER, STL.com, insurancecareerstl.com. Go there now. Back to the podcast.
And wait, insurancecareerstl.com.
Back to the podcast.